Okay. All right. So let me make sure that we go live on, it looks like. Okay, so here we are today. This is Books Galore and Creator Core. We want to apologize to everybody. We have been having some serious technical difficulties, but the show must go on, and here we are. So I just want to thank anybody who might be watching now. I want to double check and make sure that we are indeed live. Yes, we are. And I want to introduce everybody. This is a Books Galore and Creator Core event, and we have with us today Poetess Latasha Daneille Drax. So why
Hi.
don't you introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, we have definitely been having technical difficulties, but like you said, the show must go on. So it is a
There.
pleasure to be here with you today. And my name is Latasha Daneille Drax, and I am a poet, author, an advocate, teacher, all the things. And it's just a pleasure to be here with you today to just talk about those things and whatever else we can muster up during this time
There
together.
you go. We're gonna have fun. So, what I was really excited about when we first spoke is that I looked at some of your work, and not only was the cover beautiful, but you seem to have put like a lot of heart and soul into your work. And remember that you have mentioned that you are not a spoken word poet. You
Mhm.
are you don't consider yourself that. So why don't you speak on that a little bit?
Well, poetry is a broad space, right? You have the traditional poet, and you have the freestyle poet, and just all the things. And I think
Right.
the difference for me, as far as a spoken word poet, is that it's more performative. They're expressive, and they get up there, and they are, they memorize their lines, and they have this great dramatic stage presence. The themes oftentimes are, specific to whatever that experience that they're trying to convey. And that's just not my style. For me, I would rather you just read it and go about your business. But so I think that's the difference as far as the delivery of the way I deliver my poetry. And that doesn't mean that I do not do open mics or I don't recite poetry. There are some of my poems that sound even better being heard. So I often do that. That's why I have a YouTube channel, which is Catalyst Inc. Presents. And I do the video poems with that to not only give an audio to it, but a visual for people to really kind of internalize the poetry and see the imagery of the words. So I have a lot of wordplay. I have a lot of metaphors and different techniques that I use for literary techniques that I think makes it a little bit different from a spoken word. So I really think it's a combination of a whole lot of different aspects of poetry, which makes it, more unique, more
Okay.
uniquely my voice.
Okay, okay. So why don't you tell us, like, how did you first, get into writing poetry? What was sort of the inspiration and how you started?
Well, that's a very good question. I really can't say, if there was a specific inspiration. My mother is a writer, she's a poet. And so basically, I would say from birth, I had the talent or the skill to write poetry, and that gift and skill comes from her. My father was an artist, or he had the skill to create amazing art. And so I would say that I was born with it. And I actually had this conversation with my mother not too long ago, and she was talking about my very first poem, which was a haiku that was published in an American poetry anthology. But it was one of those large anthologies from back in the days. I was like the 80s or something. I think I was about
Hmm.
11, and I was published in that particular book. And, it was one of those paid things. You pay, you get in there. I didn't think it was anything great, but my mother thought it was great because I was 11 and I was published, right? So just the coming from a space where my mother was very well read, we had books in the house all the time. She was a poet, and I just enjoyed writing, and that basically, so it's something that I do, and I don't think that there's anything else that I can do and do it with such passion and skill. So
Right.
it's just kind of like a gift, if that doesn't sound too cliche.
No. It's definitely a part of you. You know, it's funny because when you mentioned the those poetry publications from the 80s, I remember that because my I actually got one of mine published, and now when I think about it, I'm like, that was such a scam.
It
Like
was
I paid to give them my stuff so they could make money. What even is that? Scam. You know, when I think about it now, I'm mad because I can go to the book and say, "Oh yeah, there's my beautiful little poem," and I didn't get paid. I paid them to make
Oh, right, you
money
paid
from
them,
the poem.
but but you can say that you were published, and that's what I was telling my mother.
That's
I was like,
true.
it's not that great because like we paid for it to be there, but I think for me because I was so young, as a 11-year-old or just someone who's not even in a preteen state yet, right? Or it's like, wow, I got my thing in a book, but I don't have the book
Right.
anymore. I have the page from the book, but I don't have the book. So, but yeah, so I can say that I was published since I was 11, whether it was a scam or not. We got our name in
Yeah.
lights, Kay. We got our name in lights.
There you go. It's in a book somewhere.
It's in a book somewhere, from the
I remember.
80s, right?
Right, right. I think the one that I had sent mine off to, I'm not sure if they were called poetry.com or something, but they had
Mhm.
actually uploaded, not just, published the book, but uploaded all of that poetry onto a website so that you could go and see your poem. And I
Mm.
remember looking at it years ago and was like, "Yep, there it is, making the money."
I have none. But you know what? I guess that was really like the beginning of, this non-traditional publishing,
That's
right?
true.
Non-traditional publishing, because even now with those vanity type presses and things, if people want to, you pay them to publish your stuff, right?
That's
You're not
true.
getting any money up front or whatever. And sometimes it goes nowhere, right? And so, now that we have those spaces where we can do our own independent publishing and put our money in and be totally involved and invested in and control of it, that
Right.
makes it better, right? But back
Right.
then, all the tools that we have now wasn't as prominent. So they
That's
were on
true.
to something. They were on to something.
Oh
So
yeah, they made the money. They
they
were
made some money.
definitely onto something.
They
You
made
know, I think you're right. And I think it's also sort of really important for all of for all of the community, especially, people who are writing poetry, authors, writers, people who are creating their own content. Like it's really important to remember that if there is someone out there who is saying that they can publish your work for you and put it out for you, but they are not a traditional publishing agency, then whatever they're doing, you can do yourself
years
for free.
for
You
for
will spend far less money to get the same result.
the same result, and have total control over it. And then the beauty of having Google and all these other ways to research and kind of get the information that you need to put out the best product possible. And that's always
Right,
my thing, as an independent publisher, self-publisher. Yeah, we all can do it. It's not rocket science to a degree, but
right,
do it with a level of integrity, a level of
exactly.
excellence. And when you're doing it, because there's so much information for you to be able to do it the right way, don't just put out trash. And I
Right,
say that, very
absolutely.
bluntly. You don't need to put out trash when there is information for you to do your best work. And
Right,
platforms like this with you and just others who are saying, yeah, we can help you. We can give you some guidance. We can give you some support, and do it freely. And just so you can be on a larger platform or just be able to expose yourself, there's no excuse.
there really is no excuse.
No excuse.
Yeah. And I think one of the traps that a lot of writers fall into is the fact that we were just talking about this. We're introverts. We
Right.
don't want to deal with the outside world. We just want to write our words on paper, create our poetry, create our characters, finish the poem, finish the story, and then
Mhm.
send it off into the world and let somebody else deal with it. And you will get scammed if you
Mhm.
don't research. You
Mhm.
will get scammed if you don't research. If you're
Mhm.
going to send it off to a traditional publishing company, you need to research their process, right?
Mhm.
You have to uh, basically submit your work in a very specific format.
Mhm.
Everybody knows that. So why would you just go to any vanity publisher without researching their results?
Right.
Are they successful in getting their writers out there? Like, are they actually making sales? Or are you spending thousands of dollars to just have your book sit there?
Right. And then, and then also too with that, going back to the introvert thing, it's easier to just let someone else do it because you don't want to be seen. You don't
Right.
want to deal with the, all that comes with it. I got to talk to the people. I got to put myself
Right.
out there. Let somebody
Right.
else, let
Let,
somebody else
let
do all
somebody
of
else
that.
do that.
I don't want you to see me until it's over. And so,
Right.
and it's easy for you to get caught up in those scams. It's easy for you to believe the delusion or the illusion that the delusion is, oh yeah, they've done it before. I've seen their website. They look like they do a good job. But the illusion
Mm-hmm.
that a person can create that has the skill and the marketing wherewithal and all those things, they can have
Right.
great presentation and have no results whatsoever.
Exactly. Exactly. Because the truth of the matter is, to put a piece of writing and create, into a book, or create a book out of your writing, and then to basically put it on the internet, it's an easy well, it might not be easy for some people, but
Mhm.
it's a process that you can learn. You can
Mhm.
research it, you can study it, you can learn it, and you can learn it for free.
Mhm.
You do not have to pay money to learn this process.
Right.
And so these vanity publishers, they go, they study it, they learn it, and they do it, but they don't know how to market. They don't know how to market. They just say, "We'll publish it for you." Are
Right.
they
Well,
going to market it?
mhm. And you invest all that money, and you put all that money, like you said earlier, that you can actually do it yourself. And so
Exactly.
for me personally, I think a long-term goal would to be published by a non-traditional, well, not, excuse me, a traditional publisher, Random House or only whoever, someone larger
Right.
than myself. There's some established, esteemed traditional publisher. But
Right.
from the time that I started publishing, I have done it myself. And I have found so much fulfillment and joy in that whole entire process of being able to see my work come to life on my own. And then as a
Right.
result, I work with individuals who have that same desire to self-publish. And so my little press, free consultation as an editorial consultant and things, is Catalyst Inc. Catalyst with a K, because my nickname is Cat. I
Mhm.
love cats, by the way, but Catalyst Inc. And the catalyst is a spin on the actual word catalyst, of course. And it's because
Mhm.
I'm a catalyst for you to be able to achieve your goals as a self-published author, or just being a published author or poet, whatever the situation may be. Because I think it's important that we give people the tools or the capacity to do what can be done. And
Right.
so that's my goal. If you want to
Right.
stay with me and have me do all the things and continue to create, produce what it is that you choose to produce, that's fine. But in the process of that, I want to make sure that you know how to do it, because you can do it yourself. That's why it's independent. That's why it's self-publishing. And so I would much rather talk myself out of a job, right? Goes back to
Right.
the introvert. Just do your own thing, right?
You know,
Do it
you
yourself.
wouldn't believe how many times I have to, like, you know, not just psych myself up. Like, I literally have to go through this process before I go live. Every single time I
Mhm.
go live, okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be good. Like, I literally have to psych myself up, and
Mhm.
then I have to go psych the author up
Right, right. We
because none
psyching
of us
and
wants to be
today we're
on.
psyching each other up. Like, you
You
sure we
can
want
do
to go?
this.
You sure
Come
you want to
on.
do this? Like, how's my hair? Look at my face. This is
Girl,
just like
you're
all
cute.
of
Let's
this.
do this.
Let's just do it. Just do it. And and
Just
that's
do
and that's
this.
real. That's so it's so real, because even in my profession, I have to deal with, and I'll tell people all the time that I'm introvert, and they just like, no, you're not. Okay, well, I'm a social introvert. How about that? Because I'm a social introvert because I understand the ways of the world and my profession and the way I navigate the world, the spaces that I'm in, that I have to be social. I have to present
Right.
myself in a way in which people are drawn to me. And I mean, you're going to be drawn to me regardless. I'm going to say that. This
Right.
is magic over here. You're going to be drawn
Yes.
regardless. But at the same time, just the overwhelming, the audience and just engaging with people on a regular basis, it can be really exhausting. It can be really
Yeah.
exhausting. It can be overwhelming. And so as a social introvert, I understand that in order for me to accomplish certain things, in order for me to be who I am and for others to know who I am, that I have to engage in social things.
Right.
But when they're over, when they're
Exactly.
over, let me go back into my space, wherever that
Right.
space might be, and refresh, restore my own social battery and go out there and do it again. And that's when you said, the
Exactly.
show must go on. We have to
The
keep
show must go
that
on.
we have to keep doing it. And so we do. And my uncle, I was talking to him the other day, one of my uncles, and he was saying, you're famous. And I was like, who's famous? You have me confused with somebody. Oh, you're famous. You're all over social media. Who's all over social media? Listen, if you know something that I don't know, please inform me, because that is not my goal in life, to be famous, right? Now, I can understand that I might be a little bit have a more of a social presence than the average person who may not do those things that I do. But the things that I
Right.
do, they have to go out into the world, because then no one would know what I do.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not because that's my goal to be famous. It's my goal to share my gift, as I mentioned earlier, that it was, with others, and writing and poetry, I believe specifically, is just that tool and that platform that allows others to that it resonates. It resonates.
Right.
It's an expression of the world around us. It's an expression of our emotions, of our feelings, of our experiences. And my poetry specifically, what I hear all the time is, I don't like poetry. I don't like poetry. And most times a person will say they don't like poetry when I dig further. Well, why you don't like poetry? Because I don't understand it. Right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't understand poetry. Right? And so my talent, or the way I approach poetry, is to make it not only, just to make it relatable, and to allow people to understand the poems on a very, not basic, because I don't feel my poetry is basic, but on a level where everyone understands it. It's relatable. It's for
Right.
the average person. My poetry is for the person who says, I don't like poetry. Right? I don't like poetry. I was forced to read poetry in school. I don't want to read Shakespeare. I don't want to read these, these are my poetry is for the average person, the person who says I don't like poetry, but then when they read my poetry, or poets like myself, then they understand, like, oh, it's not intimidating. It is approachable. It does resonate. And I think that is I think spoken word does that, when everyone gets up and does that, performing their spoken word poetry. I think that does it too. People can relate to it. And so I think that my poems, even on the page, are relatable to the average person.
Okay. And honestly, I really feel like, just as artists and creators, we should look at the word basic and basically in a different light than, the younger generation uses it. And why do I say that? Because basic basically means the foundation of something,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
This basically means this. You are saying the origin of something, right? And the origin of something, especially of writing and of poetry, might be the most famous of authors. Their work might be, extremely well known.
Mm-hmm.
And so saying that your work is basic, I feel like it just doesn't get the point across, if you get my drift.
It's
Like,
basically extraordinary. How about that?
thank you. Thank you. Like maybe I'm not able to speak this out as eloquently as I would
Right, right,
like,
right,
but
right,
I
right.
don't feel we should use the word basic in reference to our work.
Right, 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 right. Especially, like you said, language evolves, right? And so that's the term
Right,
basic is not extraordinary. It's just ordinary. It's mid. It's below. It's below standards. But yeah, I get it. I get that. So yeah, so it's not basic in the sense of the negative connotation of it, but it's going back to the roots of, let's just say, it is written and the intent is for everyone, regardless of who they
right.
are, to be able to not feel intimidated by it. And so,
Right. And I think, and that's another thing because I think that people forget that all poetry is written with the intent for the reader to understand. It doesn't matter what time in history it's written. At that time,
right,
people
culturally.
understood. Just because you don't understand it now doesn't mean they didn't get it then.
Right, right, that's also a very good point. And then also too, you know, the connection in the poetry is really dependent upon if the experience is something that you can connect with, right?
Exactly.
And so, like I might not, I don't, do I want to read a poem that's about trees all the time? Not necessarily, right? Like,
Right.
if I'm in a city dweller, trees few and far between. But you know what I'm saying? So it's really
Right.
how interested you are on the subject or the theme. But that same poem that's written about trees or nature or whatever it is could be just so eloquently written that you can
Right.
appreciate it in its art form. But I don't necessarily have to like it because that's not my experience.
Exactly.
And that's okay.
Exactly.
But that becomes
Like,
the study of poetry more than just the enjoyment of it.
exactly. The style of it is, the taste that people have for certain styles is very different. Like some people enjoy Robert Frost, other people like Edward Poe,
Right.
Edgar Allan Poe, at very different styles.
Very
I
different.
like both of them. I lean more towards Edgar Allan Poe, right?
Absolutely.
But
The
I like
goodness
both of
of
them.
Edgar Allan Poe, right? That's exactly what I like too, right? The Raven.
Right. So I think that people misunderstand. It's not so much about, oh, this is basic. It's what style do you like?
Right, with style.
That's
And
what you gravitate toward.
that's a good point as well. Very valid point. But yeah, so I think, my favorites are Gwendolyn Brooks and Lucille Clifton, and using just a simplistic or simple, concise approach to their poetry, but the language is so rich. It's rich, it's deep, it's basically extraordinary for the average person. And
Right.
so I really enjoy them as and older poets from previous generations. So I
Right.
like them.
Right.
But
So
go ahead.
we've talked so much about the foundation of writing, the history of publishing, and
Mhm.
also the style of poetry. And I feel like this is a good uh part of the conversation to sort of delve into your style of poetry.
I know we told me. Look at us being so deep, talking about all the things. Talking about all the things. Okay, so and that's as far as my style, I have really been pondering that. I know I mentioned a few things here, but really trying to figure out what that style is. Just recently, and I'm not going to name the journal and everything like that, but one of my goals for 2025 was to be published in a literary journal. And I've sent my stuff over the years, rejected, rejected, rejected. I'm sure I'm not the only one who sent some work to a literary journal and just
If you
like,
haven't been rejected, you're not a writer.
right, and it's just like, no. And I just made up my mind this year, I'm going to be in a literary journal. I'm just tired of being, not being in one. Just a goal. It doesn't
Right.
validate me, but it was just a goal
A
that I
goal.
wanted to achieve. And so I saw a call for submissions, and I said, I sent it, to this particular journal, and I just got the acceptance. So I just, like I said, I don't want to go into all the details of who they are, but I they
Hello, let's celebrate for a moment. That is an accomplishment. Oh
That
my
is
goodness.
that
I'm
is
squealing on the inside.
listen, I was so, I was so happy about for being accepted. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna look and see. I'm gonna tell you exactly what they said if you don't mind. I'm looking for it.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So if you see me looking down, but and it goes to the question as far as the style, right? As far as the style. And part of what they said was, your work is a compelling embodiment of truth telling, memory, and movement. We were drawn in by the clarity of your voice, the emotional depth in your lines, and the way your voice captivated us. Wow. I, that
Congratulations.
that in and of itself, look, even if I wasn't in the journal, I'm just so happy
I
that
mean, that's just enough to make you melt, honestly.
that's just enough to make me melt, because wow. You're just wow. And I responded to it. I don't know what the protocol is, because I've I've never been in a journal, right? Like, just take your acceptance and go about your business, right? But and they also said it reflects the kind of spiritual and artistic rigor that aligns deeply with that particular journal's mission. So I responded to, like, thank you for seeing, seeing me, or seeing the poetry, not necessarily me, but seeing the poetry, because a lot of times the journals that I may have submitted to may not have been the place for my style of poetry, right?
Right,
They didn't
right,
really see it. But for them to say the movement, the memory, and the language and the clarity, everything that they said was exactly my intent for that particular poem. And so for
right.
them to be able to see the layers of it, and feel that it aligned specifically with their mission and their journal, and so bucket list checked off. I don't have to be in near another journal because that was the
Of course you
goal.
do. No, no, that's not the end. That's not where it stops.
But
You keep going.
at least for 2025, right? At least for
Oh, okay.
2025, that was the goal for 2025. And I also think that my poetry has evolved from my younger years. My very first book, which I'm actually considering to put like back in rotation from a different perspective, was called Fruit of My Womb. That was my very first self-published book. And I was in college at the time, and I had all these poems, like I've been writing forever. And I had all these poems, and I said, I'm gonna just self-publish this book. And I actually made a pretty penny based on how rudimentary the approach was, because I had no idea what I was doing at the time. This was many, many years ago, and it was just woo child. But and everybody just was like, oh, and the thing is that even when I was a small child, I would put together books. Like I would look at a real book, and then I would put it in a journal type, and I would cut out pictures, and I would put the pictures in the book, and put my poems, I type them up and tape them onto the pages. And so I would create an actual book with my poems, and I still have those books today. So I've been self-published since I was a child. Right.
There you go.
And so when I was in college, and it came back to me, like that childhood, fantasy that I had going on, and I published my first book. So my poetry then was more like narrative, like it was more of a narrative kind of style of poems. They were longer and just kind of more like a real lengthy storytelling kind of approach, and
Right,
just
right.
so the themes and the content was a little bit different based on my experience. And so as I, got older, as I've matured, not only as a person, but as a writer, now I'm bringing in a lot more different techniques, being an English major, knowing what those literary techniques were, not just relying on a natural gift, but really kind of delving into the different skill sets, appreciating other authors and writers and poets. And I tell you a Nikki Giovanni story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been loving Nikki forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Giovanni, and And many years ago, like I was in college and I went to a university. She was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a predominantly white university, and the audience was predominantly white because it was a predominantly white university. And the people, the audience, everybody was, predominantly white. They had little workshops and everything like that. And I had attended one of the workshops, and she and I were in this, and it was like in a library, and we had this, it was really just a handful of people who she was speaking to at that time. And
Right.
everybody was, once again, like I said, it was a white university. So everybody in the little group, very small group, were white, and it was just me and Nikki, and we were both Black, right? So I was sitting kind of close to her. If you didn't know any better, you would have thought we was just together. Like maybe I was an assistant carrying her bags, whatever, right?
Right.
But we was in very close proximity. And it was just like, like that was my homegirl. So then we had a little dinner, like we had a little lunch or whatever afterwards, and everybody was just mingling and everything like that, and saw her there at the in the area. And I was like, oh, I want to talk to you. And, and she was like, sure. So we talking, and I told the Nikki Giovanni, that I never read any of her poetry. Yeah, we just gonna have to have a moment of silence for all of that. She's going on to glory now, but yeah, that was like, so now, she was a firecracker, from the beginning, right? She was the Malcolm of poetry, right? And she just looked at me. And then I said, but my mother has all your books and all of this stuff. And I said, a good name is worth more than riches.
You tried to smooth that one over.
And she just was looking at me, right? And she said, when you leave here, I want you to go and get this book. And the name of the book was Black Poets. And she said, and I want you to read that book and get familiar with poets and other writers. And I have that book to this day, because I left there and I went and got that book. That was well over 15 years ago. And got that book, Black Poets. And the lesson from that was, because my thought process was, as a young or immature writer, poet, was that if I read other people, I would sound like them, or it would look like them. So I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do my own thing. Right. But the reality is there's nothing under the sun. And in order for you to be a better writer, you have to be a good reader, and vice versa. Right. So the more you learn about others and their style and their techniques, then it's easier for you to define your own in that process. And, and it's one thing to copy and plagiarize someone, but it's a whole different thing to gain inspiration or influence from someone else. And so, she's an inspiration, like I said, I mentioned Clifton and Brooks earlier. And, there's others, but those are those back in the day, that the root of what I do, right? The root of what I do.
Right.
So, so going back to what you said, like I haven't really kind of coined what it is, but I think with those, with that editorial, their editorial team said for that journal, was really along the lines. But I'm in a space where I really want to be able to articulate that better, that when someone asks me like you did, that I would have, this is what it is,
right.
This is my style, this is how it is. But I just want people to not only read it and enjoy it, but read it and it resonates. They understand it. It's clear, it's concise, it's clarity. It's all of those things. It evokes something in you that, and I understand that it's probably, for the most part, a niche audience for some of the poems. But at the same time, I want like a global kind of really approach. Like it's not just for this niche kind of person or this, but this, can you see that?
A little bit. It's kind of maybe there you go, right there. That's perfect. Well, turn it a little straight. There you go.
You see it? Okay,
it's so pretty.
Thank you so much. So this is this was after my first book. This was the second book that I had a little hiatus, but Metamorphosis of Rhythm was the second collection of poetry that this was when I actually became more well versed in self-publishing. All the little kinks I kind of like understood, and I'm like, this second one, I'm going,
Right.
I'm going to do the right thing. And went through all of the things to do it. And this is available on Amazon. I published it, I published it through Book Baby. That was the first one that I had actually used, and it's on, like I said, it's on Amazon, available, for purchase. And so with this particular one, it's a combination that has some narrative. I say that it's free verse. That's pretty much oftentimes my style and approach, but it's free verse primarily in this particular collection, and this is probably one of my favorite. I love butterflies. So everything that seems to associate with me is with butterflies. And my artist for this, Melissa Green, phenomenal artist. And I gave her my vision, and she executed the vision beautifully. And it got to a point when I said, well, can you make the butterflies do this? She said, no.
Did you see the little book reel that I made for your book?
No, I got where?
Yes, it's on the face. I made a little book reel. It's a little. The butterflies are flying.
Oh my gosh, I missed it. I have to go see it.
You gotta go see it. Yeah,
you're right, because I'll repost it on my page. I know I reposted something on my page on my page from you, but no, I gotta go see that. You or share it with me in my DMs, and then I'll make sure that I can go see it, because I don't know how far.
I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
So I love butterflies. And I happen to have the opportunity. I've had the opportunity to work with amazing artists who, I can't draw myself, but I have worked with amazing people who can draw, who I'll say put up with me. Because I can't draw myself, but I want to tell you what I would like. But they're patient, they're powerful, they're talented, they're all the things. And I don't think it's like my artist and I'm telling you what to do. It's a collaboration, because each time I work with an artist to do a cover or whatever, they, we have a conversation, well, what do you want? How do you want it to look? We have that thing. And when they say, and when I give them an idea and say, can you do this? And they say no, I appreciate it, because it's a collaboration and they're the expert in that. They know, no, that's not going to work. It's not, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm not even, you sure? No, and so she flat out, I'm not doing that. This is, and so this particular cover, and I love the cover so much. It's just like, even if you didn't even read the poems in the book, which I hope people do, and they have, this is an older book, but it still has motion, as they say.
Right.
It's like the Lauryn Hill Miseducation.
Lauryn Hill.
She ain't come out with another album, but we still love the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, right?
Yes, we do.
Right, we still love it, and she has capitalized on it forever. And so it's the same kind of idea for me. I'm not on the same level as Lauryn Hill, but this continues to have motion, because I love the cover and I love the poems that are in this particular work. I always have a haiku in anything that I do. I wouldn't say it's my favorite art form, but that goes back to when I was 11. My very first published poem was a haiku, so it seems like every time I have a publication, a haiku is in it. But so I think that the cover in and of itself, like, even if you weren't reading all the poems, that, it's just like cover art. It's just an art. It's, you can frame it, like, this is, it's so beautiful. And someone had said to me before, and I don't know anything about that spirituality kind of stuff, but they said something about the chakras. Do you know that, with the chakras?
I've heard of them, but that's a religion that I don't go into.
Right.
I'm in the church. I don't deal with that other stuff.
But you know, so
I am a child of God. I don't
amen,
deal with no
hallelujah,
chakras.
amen, hallelujah. But at the time, I was like, what are they talking about? You know, like, I had no idea. But in exploring it, because anytime something is brought to my attention, and once again, it goes back to people connecting and resonating with something, right? You know, and
Mhm.
you know, a cover of a book is something that people, you know, they will be drawn to the cover. If the cover captivates them, then they're like, you know, they want to
Right.
look inside. And so something captivated them about the cover. And this particular individual said something about the chakras, but the combination of colors and all those things, and kind of attached it to whatever that belief system that they had, and what the colors meant and the vibrancy
Meant
of
to
it
them.
all. And right. And it, you know, and so when I looked into it just to get clarification as to what they were talking about, I saw, or understood rather, what it was meant. Because
Right. Right.
when I was doing it and we were doing the color scheme and in the combination, I wasn't thinking about chakras, right? You know, it was just
Right. Right.
inspired, you know, it was God inspired idea how I wanted it to be and what I wanted it to look like. But
Right.
clearly that resonated with them in that way. But we know everything comes from one source. So that's it. That's all with that.
There you go. So,
So
one thing I do want to ask is, are you going to come back to read us some poetry another time?
I am going to
There
come
you
back.
go.
I am going to come back whenever you invite me. But when I come back, I will read from my newest collection that will be going on pre-sale August 1st, I believe. That's the date, hopefully. And I don't know. Can you see this?
Yes, a little bit
What I
right
mean?
there, I think. Yeah. There you go. Yes, I can see it.
You see now? Okay.
Yes.
And you see what that looks like, right? You see the butterfly?
Yes.
Another
I
butterfly.
see it.
Yeah,
I
it's
see it.
not as good, and which is kind of, you know, whatever. But do you see what it looks like, Kay? It looks like what?
It looks like a woman wearing a butterfly.
Yeah, right. But the case, look how it is appearing. Remember
Oh, it looks
these?
like a CD.
It's a,
That's not a CD?
it's a no, ma'am, no, ma'am. So
What is it?
well, the illusion of it is actually is a CD, right? It is a CD. So I had another God idea, and I created a I have a mixtape, you know, that's on Spotify right now. Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all the things, all digital platforms. It's called A Piece of Mind, and it's a poetry mixtape. And
Mhm.
so, you know, it's available for streaming, download. You know, you can catch that. Latasha Daneille is that name. Latasha Daneille, Daneille. Latasha Daneille, A Piece of Mind. So that's a poetry mixtape, poems to music, and it's excerpts that comes from this particular piece of this newest collection, which is called Pandemonium. And so
Okay.
my idea, so A Piece of Mind is like the preview of Pandemonium, but it's to music. And so once again, so
Okay.
that's the musical version of it, or the audio version of it. And then I decided that the poems that some of those poems from that collection, from that mixtape, and also the poems from the collection, that instead of them putting them in a traditional book format, that I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to the future, back to the 90s, and be selling CDs out my trunk.
There you go. Do it however you got to do
Right.
it.
So what I did was I basically created a book of poems that were, you know, do you remember how they had the booklets? They had
Yes.
the booklets in a CD when they had the extended version or whatever. So
Yes.
this is a booklet of poems that fits in the CD case. I have the butterfly, once again, a cover that I think is really phenomenal. That could just be, you know, cover art, and then it could just be a showcase. You know, you have CDs, but there's no CD in it, which you'll open it up and you'll actually have the book of poems. These were poems that were birthed from the pandemic, from a project that I was working on, and then it just morphed into something totally different. So the idea is, you know, I'm selling a CD case, a CD, but it's of poems. And then the other caveat of that is caveat, whatever, you know that word,
Caveat, yeah.
that when you purchase it, you also there's a QR code part of the CD that will take you to the actual mixtape from any, it gives you the mixtape. So you can,
Okay.
so you can have either, or you can just go to any of the streaming platforms and stream it. Like I said, Spotify, all the things, iTunes or whatever. But if you buy the actual collection in the CD format, then you have the collection, and then you have the download as well with the QR
Right.
code. So I just
Right.
thought that it was just a brilliant idea. No one's doing it now. The world knows. Now the world knows. But they know it came here first.
There you go.
But so I'm just excited about this because once again, it's poems from the pandemic, but it's also something new and different that hasn't been. I know that no one has done this before as far as doing it in this. Have you heard of that before? Have you heard?
I've never heard of that before outside of it, having, if it had a CD, but it clearly does not. So no, I've not heard of that before.
Right. You never saw someone put a book in a CD and try to package it. So it's really the packaging. I just packaged my poetry book in a CD format. And so,
Well,
like I
it
said,
will be protected forever as long as the case is kept safe. So
right, as long as the case is kept safe, because but it can go on your bookshelf same way.
there
Just
you
slip it in there and everything like that. But you have the music and the words, and and I'm excited. I'm excited not just because of the poems, but I'm excited about the concept and doing something totally new and different and unique. And that's pretty much one of the other things that I would say that I try to do, like stretch boundaries, push
right.
boundaries with my approach to poems. Like I said before, my poetry channel, which one of my poems from Metamorphosis of Rhythm, Commercial Blemishes, is
Hmm.
a video on my YouTube channel, Catalyst Inc. Presents. And so, just really bringing poetry to life, making it more personable, more relatable to the average individual who might say, I don't like poetry, or the
Right.
seasoned poet who says, I'm trying to be, I keep getting rejected from, from these journals, and no one seems to like my poetry, but realizing that you have a unique voice and you can deliver it any way that you choose to deliver it, and do something out the box. Don't try to be like
Right.
anybody else, be a butterfly, metamorphose,
Right.
do something
There you
different,
go.
and people will just appreciate that uniqueness. And you'll have so much greater results with your
Right.
authenticity than you will have trying to be like someone else.
That is so true. That is so true. And I can't wait for you to come back and read. You said that's part of your new poetry that you're going to have on
Right.
pre-sale. It's not the one that you just sent off, is it?
Um,
Because you don't want to read
oh
the
no,
one
no,
that you
no,
just.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no,
Just
no.
making sure, because
That's why
they have feelings about that.
they have rules and regulations, but no, that's why I didn't.
Yes.
That's why I didn't drop their name. I just,
Right.
just like, just keeping all that all under wraps. But the poems would be from Pandemonium, which is my CD,
Okay,
my
awesome.
book
So then
CD.
there you go. So we'll have to catch up with each other on that and plan that.
Yes, yes. And listen, I don't know if you've listened yet, but if you haven't listened, okay, please listen to my mixtape. Have you listened?
Okay. No, I have not. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, right. And it's
I have
okay.
not. I am
It's
so
okay.
sorry.
Like you don't have nothing better else to do than listen to my mixtape. I understand, but yeah, it is available. And like I said, on Spotify and all those different. I keep saying Spotify, like that's my favorite, but it's on any other platform that you want. It also is on YouTube Music. So if you don't have any of those options of Spotify, Deezer, iTunes, Amazon Music, any of that, then they have put it on YouTube Music as well. So you just have to search for Peace of Mind, Latasha Daneille, and you can
Okay.
find it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
7 minutes, but once again, it's different. It's
Text
different.
me. You have my number. Text me.
I
Be
will.
like,
I will
hey,
text you. What do
have
you
you
have?
listened to it yet?
It's only it's 7 minutes. It's going, I'm trying to have like, I'm like, I was in a stew like your favorite rapper.
There you go. There you
I'm
go.
trying to be just, but it's, what do you have? Which one do you have? Do you have any of those? Spotify, YouTube? I mean, not
Oh, I mean,
YouTube.
I have an account on pretty much anything. Like you
Okay.
said, I probably got it. The
Right.
only
Yeah.
thing I don't have, the only thing I don't have is an Apple because I'm an Android person.
That's
So,
right. Android
but
gang gang.
honestly, I know Apple people tend to sort of feel a type of way
Well, you
when
know what? But listen, they can feel any way that they want to, as long as they have access to a peace of mind. It's on
there
iTunes.
you go.
But yeah,
There you go.
I'm a Android all day, every day. I don't know what the back and forth is about it. It's definitely preference, but I believe Android is the superior. But that's not the conversation. We're not here for that.
Yeah. No.
We're not here for that. But
No.
but so if you don't have Amazon Music, if you have
Right.
Amazon,
Yes.
it's on Amazon, or Spotify, or like a YouTube. But I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
And
Give it like
and like I said, 7 minutes whenever you get time, and you just kind of see. And that's another thing. Like if other poets were to come to me, because every time I do something, it's a precursor, or it prepares me for someone else to do it. Because once again,
right.
Catalyst Inc. is to help you gain the capacity to do things on your own. So there may be
Right.
others who say, I've been wanting to do an audio recording, whether it was an
Right.
audio recording with music or without. Now I've done it, and I can teach you how to do it, or give you, or do it for you.
Pointers.
Right.
Right.
And so everything that I do, the long-term objective is to build capacity for others to do it while I'm doing it for
Right.
myself. So
Right.
now I can help people, do an audio recording if that's their desire to do so.
That's awesome. I think that's also another aspect, and we've gone a while, but I do want to address this. I think that's another aspect of creative work that we really haven't talked about much on this platform with any of the other creators, in that
Mhm.
it's important to be able, as a writer, to know how to record audio of your own work. Like I've actually put that into practice on my own, recording
Mhm.
my own work, recording my own audio. Um, I don't really sell it anywhere or anything like that. I don't do
Well,
that.
see,
But
if you want me to help you, just let me know. Now, I'm not the expert, but
honestly, it's more a lack of confidence. I will be honest. It's more a lack of confidence than ability, because
Mhm.
I've recorded several things. I've recorded my own poetry. I've audio recorded workbooks, things like that. But actually putting it out there,
uh,
um,
okay.
yeah,
That's the
that's the
hesitancy.
thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean,
So
I'm also a listener poet, and we probably, our time is wrapping up, but it goes back to the audio. It kind of lines up. So I'm a listener poet, a certified listener poet. Now that might not mean nothing to anyone else, but I did get training to become a certified listener poet, and basically is with that I hold space for individuals who are, for my approach, is for those who are in marginalized communities whose voices might be silenced, or who feel that they're not heard or listened to. So in the sessions that I host, I hold a 15-minute listening session where I provide space for that individual to just vent. I
right,
typically deal with the justice impacted community. This is not therapy. This is talk non-therapy. You talk, I listen. Together we create raw poetry. From that experience, I create a customized poem from them, basically telling their story. I create that poem from them, from that experience that I had with them listening. And then I share that poem with them. We exchange feedback. They give me, I don't like this or whatever, over a course of maybe 72 hours, tops 5 days. And then that poem belongs to them. That poem is theirs. I give them the written poem, and I also record the poem so they can hear how it sounds. And so they get the audio for it. So both those things belong to them, the audio and the custom poem. Most of the
mhm,
individuals that I work with are advocates in some space or another. So they've used it for their own, they're introducing themselves and they read their poem, or, they put it on their
right,
website, whatever they do. But it's their poem. I just say, give me credit. But I also host listening. I do that for individuals, but I also facilitate listening poetry workshops for organizations who want to do something different with their organizations, maybe professional development. They want to do conflict resolution with their team building, peer support, any of those types of things where they realize that active listening and being able to have that empathy and compassion for others and to hear is something that can help that organization or those teams be more effective in the work that they do. And so I think being able to hear what's written is another piece of just elevating your work, and also being even more inclusive to a community who might not have the ability to read it, whether it's time or ability. So I would say if you've recorded it, let the people hear your voice.
Okay. Okay.
They might, lull you to sleep or something.
Sometimes we need somebody to push us, right? Sometimes we need someone to push us. So.
Yeah, push it, because if you what confidence do you need? You already did it. It's done. All you got to do is share it. Just like
you're right.
It's like one of those things. Throw the rocks and hide your hand. Like, just put it out there and just act like you didn't do it.
You're right. You're right. So if you see me putting out any audio, you can be like, I told Kay to do that.
Right. But you know why? Because I'm a catalyst.
There you go.
Yes, it is. It's full circle.
There you go.
That's where it goes.
There you go. So I just want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on here today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I just want to thank anybody who is watching. This was Poetess Latasha Daneille Drax. She has a beautiful body of work. She has work that is currently about to be published in traditional publishing. She has some poetry up for pre-sale. And also she is a professional listener poet. So she provides services to aspiring poets as well. Please make sure that you put all of your social media links and your contact information in the chat on Facebook on the video, so that when I share it out, people will be able to access your information.
Oh my gosh, you gotta look at the video, okay? No.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Okay.
If I have to put my stuff out there, you've got to go look.
I will do all of that. Thank you so much once again for having me. And it's just every time we've had an encounter, it just seems like I'm talking to an old friend. So I definitely appreciate it. So we're gonna have to meet in the middle. What state is in the middle?
So we're gonna have to figure it out.
So we can, introverts unite in the middle and have coffee and just go our separate ways.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the watching audience, this has been Poetess Latasha Daneille Drax. Please stay tuned for the page. We will be putting up the rest of the calendar for this month and into the first weeks of the next month. We will be actually Truth Talk Tuesdays are paused temporarily as I'm studying for exams, but we will be having Books Galore and CreatorCore again next week. And we will in the future also be having the Creator Carnival in September. So we'll be, putting out news and bulletins for that. So thank you again. My eyes are burning. Thank you again. And we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.